So far, we've talked a lot about surface level diversity, demographics, education, functional background. We talked about the impact of different levels of surface level diversity. We had talked about variability on these surface level dimensions. And we also talked about fault lines. Now what I want to do is turn our attention to some of these deep level diversity attributes that people bring with them to the team. They're non-observable, but they have huge effects on how your team performs and ultimately how you have to manage that team in order to drive that team's performance and deliver the level of excellence that you aspire to. The first dimension that we're going to talk about is personality. Personality in teams. And there are lots of different ways to think about and conceptualize personality. The Myers-Briggs version of personality is one that many people around the world are familiar with. So I give you that one here as an example. Some of you may be INTJs or ENFPs, INFJs. If you're not familiar with the Myers-Briggs typology of personalities, you can simply look it up on the internet, Myers-Briggs personality dimensions. There's even free assessments that you can take online that will help you understand where you fall in terms of your personality configuration. And you can also do assessments of your team members in terms of where they fall. And it can be a helpful diagnostic just as a conversation tool of, well, I'm an INTJ and you're an ENTJ. So we share a lot of personality dimensions, but you're more introverted, I'm more extroverted, or vice versa. What does that mean for how we work together? And so that might be a helpful diagnostic. Another version of personality is what we call the Big Five. The Big Five includes extroversion, conscientiousness, agreeableness, openness to experience, and what we call emotional stability. Susan Cain wrote a wonderful book on extroversion versus introversion called Quiet. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. What she really explained was the spectrum of extroversion and introversion. Extroverted people preferring more stimulating social environments versus introverted people preferring that less stimulating, less social environment, and that being a core dimension of this personality and being one of the Big Five. Conscientiousness. This is really attention to detail or how much you strive for achievement. Would be the more you strive for achievement, the more attention you have to detail, the higher you are in conscientiousness. The less you do those things, the lower you are. Agreeable versus disagreeable. We all know people who are highly agreeable, will go along with pretty much anything. And we also know people who are generally disagreeable, that will want to argue just for the sake of arguing. Same with openness to experience. We know people who are generally open to trying new things, trying new experiences, experimentation. We often know people who are not open to new experiences. They like their routine, for example. And then last but certainly not least is what we call emotional stability. These are the folks that if you're highly emotionally stable, no matter how much adversity you face, no matter how much unexpected events come your way, you're able to stay calm, not too positive, not too negative, as opposed to folks who lack that emotional stability, or what we often refer to in the personality research world as more neurotic, where depending on the situation, they're either really high or really low, really positive or really negative. And those are the folks that are less emotionally stable. I really prefer the Big Five typology of personality for thinking about teams. One, because we can really get our hands around and understand these 5 dimensions of personality. And there's extensive research validating the importance of each of these dimensions for how individuals perform in organizations, but importantly for this course, how teams perform and how you want to configure your team with these different personalities so that you can get the best out of your team. So let's start there. Let's first map your team's personality profile. So similar to what we did with the surface level demographic diversity, I'd like you to map your team members on each of the Big Five. And so again, you may have multiple groups. You may just have one group that you want to focus on. But go through each of your team members. And you don't necessarily have to give them a formal personality assessment. You observe their behavior every day. If you want to give them an assessment, if you want to go ask them, perfectly fine. But chances are you at least have some intuitions, or you can make some assumptions about where each of your team members fall. So member A, member B, C, and D. If you have more than 4 team members, feel free to add to the personality mapping tool here. But for each of these individuals, how extroverted or introverted? How open to experience are they? How conscientious or non-conscientious? How agreeable or disagreeable? How emotionally stable or neurotic are they? Do your assessment and then reflect on how much diversity in personality do I have? Do I have a high level of diversity in personality? Do I have a low level of diversity in terms of personality? And then where's my team average on each of these dimensions? If I look across the team, are we on average more extroverted or more introverted? And for each of the big 5, do this analysis. Really think deeply about your individual team members. And then come back to me and I'll share with you some of our latest, what I consider cutting edge research, understanding the impact of team personality on things like conflict and ultimately performance in your team.